In the vast expanse of the galaxy, many powerful alien civilizations had formed a coalition to maintain peace and order among the stars. The alliance consisted of formidable species, each boasting advanced technology and unparalleled military strength. Humanity, relatively new to the interstellar stage, was considered insignificant and inconsequential by these dominant races. They saw humans as weak, fragile beings who had yet to prove their worth in the grand scheme of things. To the coalition, humans were merely a curious anomaly, not a potential threat. The human protagonist, a seasoned former military officer turned traitor, found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. While navigating the edges of known space, his ship had inadvertently entered a restricted zone patrolled by the alien coalition. Immediately, he was captured and brought aboard a massive alien vessel for interrogation. The aliens suspected him of espionage, believing no mere traitor would venture so close to their secret installations. Unaware of humanity's true potential, they assumed this human would easily break under their interrogation techniques. The head of the interrogation was an imposing figure, a high-ranking alien official who prided himself on his reputation for extracting information. He looked down on humans, viewing them as primitive and weak-willed. To him, this interrogation was merely a formality, a routine process to confirm his suspicions. His overconfidence was palpable as he entered the interrogation chamber, a sterile room filled with various alien instruments designed to intimidate and break the spirit of any captive. As the interrogation began, the human sat calmly in the middle of the room, his hands restrained but his demeanor surprisingly composed. The alien interrogator launched into a series of accusations, his voice dripping with disdain as he demanded to know the human's purpose near their restricted zone. To his surprise, the human responded not with fear, but with a look of confusion and a hint of amusement. He denied any wrongdoing, explaining that he was merely a traitor who had lost his way. His voice was steady, his eyes unwavering as he met the interrogator's gaze. The alien's frustration grew as the human continued to deflect his questions with calm logic and occasional humor. The interrogator had expected a trembling, broken being, not someone who could maintain composure in the face of his authority. Annoyed by the human's lack of fear, the alien ordered the use of psychological tactics, showing the human falsified images of Earth under attack, his loved ones in peril. Yet the human saw through the deception, his expression turning from confusion to defiance. "You think this will scare me?" he asked, his voice steady. "You have no idea what we've endured on Earth. We've faced extinction, survived against all odds. You think a few pictures will break me?" The interrogator, taken aback by this unexpected resistance, ordered his subordinates to employ more advanced techniques. They brought out devices designed to probe the mind, to uncover hidden fears and weaknesses. Yet, as they attempted to delve into the human's thoughts, they found themselves hitting walls, unable to fully penetrate his defenses. The human's mind was resilient, his willpower stronger than they had anticipated. Hours passed, and the human remained defiant, his spirit unbroken. He began to subtly turn the conversation around, questioning the morality of the aliens, asking why they felt the need to resort to such barbaric methods. His words were calm, but they carried a weight that made even the most seasoned interrogators shift uncomfortably. The head interrogator, now visibly irritated, struggled to maintain control of the situation. "You're nothing but a human," he hissed, his voice laced with frustration. "You have no power here. You are alone." Helpless, the human merely smiled, a knowing, almost pitying smile that sent a shiver down the alien's spine. "Maybe," he replied, "but you've clearly never met a human before. We're more resilient than you think." The room fell silent as the interrogator stared at the human, the realization dawning on him that this was no ordinary captive. Despite his initial assumptions, the human was proving to be far more resilient, far more cunning than he had ever imagined. This was not going to be as easy as he had thought. The interrogation, now entering its second phase, took a darker turn. The aliens, frustrated by the human's resistance, decided to escalate their methods. They started with psychological tactics, attempting to break the human spirit through a series of carefully orchestrated mind games. They bombarded him with disorienting lights and sounds, designed to induce confusion and anxiety. They told him lies about his friends and family, trying to isolate him mentally and emotionally. Yet the human sat there, seemingly unbothered, a faint smile playing on his lips. The interrogators couldn't understand his reaction. Every insult, every threat was met with calm deflection or, worse, humor. The human seemed to be enjoying himself, making light of their attempts to intimidate him. When they threatened him with isolation, he chuckled, recalling how solitude was a rare luxury for humans back on their overcrowded homeworld. The interrogators grew more frustrated, unable to comprehend how someone could remain so defiant in such dire circumstances. Realizing that psychological tactics were failing, the head interrogator decided to intensify the interrogation. They brought in advanced alien devices, designed specifically to inflict pain without causing permanent damage. These devices were feared across the galaxy, capable of making even the toughest beings beg for mercy. The aliens were confident that these tools would break the human where words had failed. As the device activated, emitting a low hum, the human tensed but did not cry out. He had been trained for this in his military days, to withstand pain and keep a clear head. The aliens watched in astonishment as he gritted his teeth and endured the onslaught without uttering a single word of surrender. Sweat poured down his face, but his eyes remained defiant, locking onto the head interrogator's gaze with a look of challenge. The head interrogator, now visibly agitated, leaned in closer. "Tell us what you know, human, or we'll take this to the next level," he snarled. The human, panting heavily but still holding his ground, managed a weak smile. "You think this is the next level?" "You clearly don't know what humans are capable of enduring," he replied, his voice strained but steady. "This is nothing compared to the hell we've survived," the interrogator, his patience wearing thin, ordered an increase in the device's intensity. The human's body convulsed with the pain. But he refused to scream, refused to give them the satisfaction of hearing his anguish. His mind flashed back to his training, to the grueling exercises that had conditioned him to withstand this and more. He focused on his breathing, on controlling his thoughts, pushing the pain to the back of his mind. As the minutes dragged on, the aliens started to realize that they were not dealing with an ordinary human. This one was different, stronger, more resilient than they had anticipated. The head interrogator, now sweating himself, turned off the device in frustration. "You are wasting your time," the human said through gritted teeth, his voice hoarse but unwavering. "Humans are not as weak as you think." The head interrogator, angered by the human's words, decided to try a different approach. They would play with his mind, show him things that would break even the strongest of wills. They created holograms of Earth burning, of his family and friends being tortured. They filled the room with the sounds of screaming, hoping to break through his defenses. But the human, though visibly affected, did not falter. He closed his eyes, blocking out the horrific images, and began to speak. He spoke of Earth's history, of how humanity had faced extinction multiple times and had always found a way to survive. He told them stories of wars, of plagues, of natural disasters that had nearly wiped them out, but each time they had come back stronger. "We are not weak," he said, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We are not fragile. We are survivors. We are fighters. You think these images will break me? We have faced worse and come out victorious." The aliens, now visibly unsettled, watched as the human continued to talk. He spoke of humanity's greatest achievements, of their resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. He spoke of their ability to adapt, to learn, to grow stronger with each challenge. The interrogators, who had been so sure of their superiority, started to feel a creeping sense of doubt. This human was not just resisting, he was turning their own tactics against them, using his words to make them question their own beliefs. As the human continued to speak, the head interrogator's confidence began to waver. He had underestimated this being, had thought him weak and insignificant. But now he was beginning to see that he had made a grave mistake. The human's words were not just defiant, they were powerful, filled with a truth that resonated even with the most hardened of hearts. The interrogators exchanged uneasy glances as the human, now visibly exhausted but still defiant, leaned back in his chair. "You can try whatever you want," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "But you won't break me. You won't break humanity." The room fell silent as the interrogators, for the first time, truly began to fear the being before them. It was at that moment they realized they were not dealing with a mere human. They were facing something far more dangerous, something they had never encountered before: the indomitable spirit of humanity. And as the human locked eyes with the head interrogator, a chilling smile spreading across his face, they knew they were in over their heads. This was no longer just an interrogation. It was a battle of wills, and the human was winning. The atmosphere in the interrogation room shifted as the human began to reveal a side of himself that the aliens had not anticipated. Despite their best efforts to break him, he remained defiant, his resolve unwavering. It was then that the human started to turn the tables, revealing a depth of knowledge and cunning that caught the interrogators off guard. He began to speak of things he shouldn't have known: alien technology, protocols, even the structure of their organization. The interrogators exchanged worried glances, unsure of how this seemingly ordinary human could possess such information. The human leaned forward, his voice low and calm, as he described in detail the workings of the device they had used on him. He spoke of its design, its purpose, and even its limitations, as if he were intimately familiar with their technology. The aliens, stunned, could only listen as he continued, explaining how he had deduced this information from his observations during the interrogation. He pointed out flaws in their methods, suggesting improvements with a nonchalance that bordered on arrogance. The interrogators, used to being the ones in control, found themselves on the defensive, struggling to keep up with the human's unexpected knowledge. The head interrogator, his earlier confidence now replaced with unease, demanded to know how the human had acquired such information. The human smiled, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "You see, we humans have a knack for noticing things, for understanding systems. We've always been good at adapting, at turning the tools of our enemies against them." He leaned back, his gaze never leaving the interrogator's face. "You thought you were interrogating me, but I've been studying you all along." The interrogator's discomfort grew as the human began to subtly undermine their authority. He started asking questions, probing their knowledge of humanity, their understanding of human psychology. Each question was designed to expose their ignorance, to reveal the gaps in their understanding. He spoke of Earth's history, of humanity's ability to learn and adapt, to take what they needed from their enemies and use it to their advantage. His words were like a poison, seeping into their minds, making them question their assumptions. As the human continued to speak, the interrogators found themselves struggling to maintain control. The head interrogator, desperate to regain the upper hand, ordered his subordinates to increase security, to tighten their hold on the prisoner. But it was too late. The human had already planted the seeds of doubt, and they were beginning to take root. The guards, once confident in their superiority, now watched the human with a wary respect, their earlier arrogance replaced with a cautious uncertainty. The human, sensing the shift in the room, pressed his advantage. He began to drop hints, subtle references to the alien coalition's weaknesses, to their internal conflicts and power struggles. He spoke of things that should have been impossible for him to know, weaving a narrative that hinted at a much deeper understanding of the alien coalition's inner workings. The interrogators, now visibly shaken, struggled to maintain their composure. "You think you're in control," the human said, his voice calm and measured. "But you've been playing into my hands from the beginning. You've shown me your technology, your methods, even your weaknesses, and all the while you thought you were breaking me." He leaned forward, his eyes cold and calculating. "But I've been learning, adapting, preparing." The head interrogator, his frustration boiling over, demanded to know what the human meant. But the human only smiled, a slow, dangerous smile that sent chills down their spines. "You've underestimated humanity," he said quietly. "You've underestimated me, and now you're going to see what that mistake will cost you." With that, the human made his move. Using the knowledge he had gathered during his captivity, he began to exploit the flaws in the alien security systems. He had observed the guards, learned their routines, memorized their protocols. He had watched, waited, and now he was ready to act. With a series of rapid, calculated movements, he disabled his restraints, using a trick he had picked up from studying the alien technology. The guards, caught off guard, scrambled to respond, but it was too late. The human moved with a speed and precision that left them stunned. He disarmed one guard, using his weapon to disable the security systems. Another guard tried to intervene, but the human was ready, using the alien's own strength against him. Within moments, he had taken control of the room, his movements fluid and efficient, his expression calm and focused. The head interrogator, now pale with fear, watched in disbelief as the human systematically dismantled their defenses. "How? How are you doing this?" he stammered, his voice trembling. The human, never breaking his stride, glanced at him with a look of mild amusement. "You thought I was helpless," he said simply. "But you should have known better. We humans are survivors. We learn. We adapt, and when pushed, we fight back." With the room secured, the human turned his attention to the head interrogator. He walked over, his steps measured and deliberate, and leaned down, his face inches from the aliens. "You wanted to know what humanity is capable of," he said softly. "Well, now you know. We're not just survivors, we're fighters, and we never give up." The head interrogator, his earlier bravado shattered, could only stare in horror as the human straightened up, a grim smile on his face. "You've made a mistake," the human continued, his voice calm and steady. "You thought you could break me, but all you've done is show me your hand. And now I'm going to show you what that means." With that, the human turned and walked out of the room, leaving the interrogators in stunned silence. He had done the impossible. He had turned the tables, using their own technology, their own arrogance, against them. And as he disappeared into the corridors of the alien ship, they knew that they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they would pay the price. The human moved swiftly through the corridors of the alien ship, his mind focused and his senses heightened. He had memorized the layout of the vessel during his captivity, noting the positions of the guards, the locations of the guards, the locations of the control panels, and the routes that would lead him to freedom. Every step he took was calculated, every turn deliberate, as he used the knowledge he had painstakingly gathered to navigate his way towards the exit. The ship was massive, a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, but the human moved with purpose, his determination unwavering. He encountered resistance along the way, groups of alien guards who had been alerted to his escape. But he was ready for them. Using the alien weapon he had taken from the guard in the interrogation room, he disarmed and disabled them with a precision that spoke of years of training. The guards, despite their superior numbers and advanced technology, were no match for his speed and tactical skill. One by one they fell before him, their weapons useless in the face of his relentless advance. As he moved deeper into the ship, he left behind a trail of confusion and chaos. The aliens, caught off guard by his escape, scrambled to contain the situation. Alarms blared, and the corridors were filled with the sound of running footsteps and shouted orders. But the human remained calm, his mind focused on the goal. He knew he had limited time before they would regroup and try to trap him. He needed to get to the hangar bay, where he could find a ship and make his escape. He reached a control room and quickly accessed the ship's systems, using the information he had gathered to bypass security protocols. He pulled up a map of the vessel, confirming the location of the hangar bay and plotting the quickest route. As he worked, he also sent a message through the ship's communication systems, broadcasting it to every corner of the vessel. It was a simple message, but its impact was profound. "You thought you could break me. You thought you could break humanity. You were wrong. And now you're going to learn what that mistake will cost you." The message sent a ripple of fear through the alien ranks. They had underestimated this human, had assumed he was just another weak, insignificant being. But now, as they watched him outmaneuver and outfight their best troops, they realized their error. This was no ordinary human. He was something else entirely, something they had never encountered before. And as they heard his voice over the ship's speakers, calm and confident, they knew they were dealing with a force they had not been prepared for. The human made his way to the hangar bay, fighting off waves of guards who tried to block his path. He moved with the efficiency of a predator, his movements fluid and precise. Each alien who tried to stop him fell before him, their weapons and armor useless against his relentless advance. He reached the hangar bay and saw a small shuttle parked in the corner, its engines powered down. It was his way out. He quickly accessed the control panel and began powering up the shuttle, his hands moving over the unfamiliar controls with a surprising ease. The aliens, realizing what he was doing, tried one last desperate attempt to stop him. A group of elite guards entered the hangar bay, their weapons trained on him. But the human was ready. Using the alien weapon he had taken, he engaged them in a fierce firefight, his movements a blur as he dodged and returned fire with deadly accuracy. One by one, the guards fell, their bodies crumpling to the floor. The last one, the squad leader, managed to get off a shot that grazed the human's arm. The pain was sharp, but the human ignored it, his focus unbroken. He took down the leader with a single, well-aimed shot, then turned back to the shuttle. The engines roared to life as he completed the startup sequence. He could feel the adrenaline pumping through his veins, his heart pounding in his chest, but he kept his mind clear, his thoughts focused. He climbed into the shuttle, sealing the hatch behind him. As he strapped himself into the pilot's seat, he took a deep breath, allowing himself a brief moment of relief. But it was not over yet. He still needed to get off the ship and away from the alien fleet. He activated the shuttle's thrusters, lifting it off the hangar floor. The ship's sensors blared with warnings as the alien vessel tried to lock onto him, but he was already moving, guiding the shuttle through the hangar bay doors and out into the cold vacuum of space. The alien fleet, alerted to his escape, began to move into position, their weapons locking onto the small shuttle. But the human was prepared. He had studied their formations, their tactics, and he knew how to exploit their weaknesses. He piloted the shuttle with a skill that defied their expectations, weaving through the maze of ships, using the larger vessels as cover to avoid their fire. It was a dangerous dance, but the human moved with a grace and precision that left the aliens scrambling to keep up. He pushed the shuttle's engines to their limit, feeling the strain as the small craft rocketed through the enemy lines. The alien ships, caught off guard by his audacity, struggled to respond. He could see the edge of the fleet now, the open space beyond where he could make his escape. But there was still one last obstacle in his way, the command ship. It loomed ahead, its massive bulk blocking his path, its weapons trained on him. The human knew he had to take a risk. He angled the shuttle towards the command ship, accelerating straight towards it. The aliens, thinking he was attempting a suicide run, fired everything they had at him. But at the last moment, the human veered sharply to the side, skimming along the surface of the command ship, using its own structure to shield himself from the barrage of fire. He could feel the heat of the energy blasts as they streaked past, but he kept going, his eyes locked on the open space beyond. And then he was through. The shuttle burst out from behind the command ship, the stars stretching out before him. He could hear the alarms blaring inside the shuttle, could see the alien ships scrambling to pursue him, but he didn't look back. He had made it. He had escaped. And now he was free. As the human guided the shuttle away from the alien fleet, he allowed himself a small, triumphant smile. He had done it. He had outsmarted and outfought the most powerful coalition in the galaxy, using nothing but his wits, his training, and his unbreakable will. He had shown them what humanity was truly capable of, had made them understand that they were not to be underestimated. He set the shuttle's course for the nearest human outpost, leaning back in his seat as the stars streaked past. He was exhausted, his body aching from the strain of the fight, but he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had proven them wrong, had shown them that humans were not weak, not fragile. They were survivors, fighters, and they would not be broken. As he sat there, watching the stars blur into lines of light, he knew that this was just the beginning. The aliens would never forget what had happened here. They would remember the human who had defied them, who had fought back and won. And they would fear humanity, not for their numbers or their technology, but for their spirit, their resilience. And as the human closed his eyes, a faint smile still on his lips, he knew that he had done more than just escape. He had sent a message, not just to the aliens, but to the entire galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were strong, they were determined, and when pushed to the edge, they were capable of extraordinary things. The galaxy would remember this day, would remember the human who had fought and won, and they would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.